I found this insider. Well, let's see what they've got for us. Please, ruin Game of Thrones for me.
Yep. If someone has got their back to you and you have a spear, do stab them in the back of the leg. My name's David Rawling from the London Longsword Academy.
My name's Jim Kent.
My name is Roko Nayandag.
Hi, my name is Neil Kamimura.
Hello, my name is Dr. Rebecca Simon.
Hi, I'm Toby Capwell.
Hi, I'm Shane Adams, the owner of the Knights of Valor.
Hi, my name is Evan Wilson.
Dr. Michael Fulton.
Today we'll be looking at Game of Thrones scenes and judge how real they are.
Holy moly, did you see that team? It's the freaking Avengers. Did you see the team? They've got the ditch guy. I'm looking forward to that. They've got David Rawlins, of course, very, very experienced sword master. Oh, they've got this guy. This guy's the longbow guy. Yeah, I've seen him a few times. And they've got Toby Capwell. But how real is it? Ooh, this is the wrong question. This is the wrong question. Season 6. I hope it doesn't spoil too much, guys. So spoiler alert, spoiler alert. It seems like they're showing pieces. So do keep that in mind.
It's got what we call a cant on the bow there. I tend to shoot with a little bit of a cant. It opens up the sight window as well. If your bow's up straight like that, generally the thing you're trying to shoot is going to be hidden by the bow. So I tend to drop the bow out of the way a little bit, which is what he's doing. He's clearly pointing one way, but you can see the arrow on his hand pointing the other way. And a lot of people call that the archer's paradox. The archer's paradox is the fact that the arrow's pointing off to the left when you're actually pointing at the target at the right. That's the paradox. And it's
I think it depends, though, because there are some, I don't want to start disagreeing. Or like Metatron, you're starting with your pedantry. No. I'm just saying, for all of you, if any of you actually do archery, I thought that sometimes it was debated in the sense that there are some iconography that shows the arrow on the right as well as the arrow on the left. And also, I thought it depended on the style, but I'm no archery expert, so you let me know if I'm full of it.
The flexing of the arrow that makes it travel down range.
That's a very low poundage
Could I kill this
bow.
dude running away? Depends on the distance. I'm only really accurate up to probably about 30 meters. I'd get him eventually. See, I'd be zigging and zagging. I'd be serpentining.
Yeah. Down.
There is a type of archery called a clout, typically done by English longbow archers, which is long distance shooting, where you shoot at a flag in the ground, sort of 180, 200 yards away, shooting up, shooting down, closest to the flag. So there are people that can shoot very, very well at long range. Medieval longbow archers could be pretty accurate. The bow
Oh yeah, I think accuracy is the defining factor of a medieval longbowman. If you were to go back to medieval England, and this is just an opinion of mine, but it is based on what I've read from the sources. I think if you asked any medieval person, particularly in England, but in general, any medieval person who had experience in the military, and you asked them, how would you describe, give me one word to describe longbowmen, they would probably say accurate. I think that is because every time we look at iconography, we read battle reports, they are really good at hitting on target, and oftentimes they shoot at point blank, by the way, during battles. They can shoot at long range. I've always looked with distrust these movies where they show medieval archers at maximum distance shooting so many arrows in the hopes that the clouds of arrows eventually will hit something. Remember, ammo is not infinite. So maybe you can do absolutely you can do some long-range shooting, and they can be very accurate at long range. For example, King Henry got shot in the face at what was supposed to be long range. In fact, safe distance in theory. But also we see a lot of situations where archers will be relatively close to their target, and that's when they are the most dangerous, because they will hit you.
You've got the basic bow, and then you'd have another set of limbs that come off the front. So that limb is attached to that limb, and that limb is attached to that limb, and that gives you way more power. So it would be perfect for that kind of, killing dudes running away kind of archery. I'm going to give it a 9 for Game of Thrones, I think.
Hello everyone, my name is Roko Nayandag.
Hey.
I teach ancient history at the University of Oxford.
All right, let's go. It's a circle.
The coordination required to do this is completely impossible. There were battle formations where you would have shield walls in front and then spears sticking out to sort of drive the enemy back. Obviously, the Macedonian pikemen are the big famous example. There are Mesopotamian examples from like way back.
Look at that, 2000 BC. 2000 BC, just to keep perspective, it's 4,000 years ago. It's incredible.
2000 BC. It wouldn't work like this though. You couldn't really form them in a circle. They would form up in blocks and they would maneuver in blocks, and that's hard enough.
Do you guys agree? I don't want to be like the one who always disagree. Do you guys agree that it would be impossible to coordinate a shield of spears like that? Because the Romans did use shield formations in a circle. We know they did. It was an extreme defensive maneuver when you were surrounded or when you needed to protect someone in the middle. So we know the Romans did it, but he could counter-argue and say, oh no, I only meant with pikes or with spear and shield. That's cool,
Once
though.
you're fully surrounded, I mean, there's nothing you can do, really. You're in big trouble. You can try to break the spears. Persians are known to do that against the Greeks. Their spears are longer, so they literally went up and snapped them in half by hand. But that's a desperation move, and it doesn't really get you anywhere. If you're in an encirclement like that of a proper pike formation, then you're just doomed. You probably surrender.
Drop the weapons, yeah. He's right. Oh yeah, this scene.
Crushes it
Oh,
up.
this scene really, I remember when I watched it, gosh, it made me want to breathe desperately.
But most of the time, when people do get crushed into a small space and the dead start piling up, it's because they're trying to run away and they can't escape because there's a river or a ravine or a wall, and they get stuck there. The panic of a trample, they do depict that very well. When horses turn up unexpectedly, especially behind the infantry line, you would give up and run.
Yep.
There is almost no chance that that formation would hold. The very
Not to mention running away from horses usually still results in you being dead if they chase you, which they usually do.
unrealistic thing in this scene is that no one knew that cavalry was there. It's possible to hide, small units in woods or hollow roads or behind some geographical feature. But a large force of cavalry is going to throw up a lot of dust. It's going to make a lot of noise. It's going to, scare the birds and the animals. You know this is coming. I think this one...
Yeah, maybe one way I would look at this, Professor, again, not countering his argument necessarily, but one thing that I would... how could that happen? Maybe similar to, imagine if you have your own cavalry wings and they're fighting, you are infantry and you're fighting in the center, corps versus corps. You've got cavalry wings, the enemy has cavalry wings, they are engaged and they fight. If the enemy cavalry wing defeats yours, then they will surround. So you did know they were there, but you didn't know that they were maybe fast enough, that they could maneuver, that they had already defeated your other men. And there are situations against the Romans, like I think at the Battle of Ticino, they did just that. The cavalry managed to go around and behind. And of course in Cannae, the cavalry managed to go behind and attack. Maybe they did know that the cavalry was there, and so they got surrounded. Or maybe the professor is right and the movie makers didn't think about it and thought, nah, the cavalry is just holding the right stick, so they're making no noise.
An interesting job of trying to give you the sort of visceral horror of a battle, and I really do appreciate that. The tactics are nonsense, but it does give a sense of desperation of some of these struggles. So maybe 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10.
Oh no, the armor. Look at that horrible, horrible little... So you're already wearing a black leather jerkin, which is providing zero protection, but then you reinforce it with these, which are supposed to be lamellae, I guess. But I mean, even if they were metal, they would be useless because you hit it in the center, your blade, the point, the business end of your blade, dagger, sword, spear, is gonna skid to the side and enter into the gap anyways. But these are further pieces of leather on top of leather. Well, how many animals? Justice for the animals.
Again, they should have been digging ditches. Literally,
There
all
we
they
go.
do is just stand around carrying like spears from one point to another. You should be digging ditches, many ditches. Once your first ditch is ready, build another one.
That's the ditch guy.
The female characters, other than the ones who've been trained to fight, are basically just sort of hiding in the dungeon and not doing anything.
Right.
In actual sieges, especially when it was this desperate.
Oh,
they would
the
just
help.
be expected to contribute.
Yeah.
Women, children, old men, everybody does something.
True.
Because there's always things that people can do even when they don't fight.
There is a specific mention in which the women fought during a siege. Of course, it's an extremely rare event, and it was a case of complete desperation. And they still lost because they were fighting the Romans. But there is I wonder if he's going to use that specific instance. Because it's true, during sieges, everyone will try. I don't know, children up to a certain extent, I guess, but in general, everyone will try to help if it's a dire, because if it's an extended siege, it's a year, so I mean, whatever. But if it's a siege like this, so it's the very end, I guess it's almost the moment of breaking. The enemy is storming in almost. Then yeah, everyone would try to do something.
Go and carry arrows and stones up to the people on the walls. Go and put out fires. Help with water and food. Help with clothing and the wounded.
Absolutely.
There's no way you would just stick them away in a corner somewhere.
Yeah. Ooh, that's cool though.
Like, why would you put them outside of the walls? They're going to be overrun. You can't move them out of the way quickly enough, so put them on top of the walls. That's where you put your artillery.
Just like the Syracusans did, for example, with Archimedes' catapults and war machines that were placed on top of walls. He's absolutely right. That's a little bit of an Age of Empire deployment.
So you can put your cavalry in front and it totally works if you don't expect your enemy to stand their ground. So putting your cavalry in front is a time-tested, very common strategy, totally works, unless you're fighting ice zombies, who are not going to break, and they're not scared of you. You're just wasting your cavalry. So it's the right tactic for the wrong moment.
Makes sense. Look at the swords. They remind me of some sort of khopesh, like Egyptian khopesh, but made of iron. So they reminded me of. They are also wearing no helmets.
There are probably several other battles in Game of Thrones where this could have worked really well. Should you find yourself fighting an army of ice zombies, so put your artillery on the wall, dig many ditches, just lots and lots of ditches. You can put, of course, your infantry in front if you want to confront them there, because that means that you will have several stages to fall back on after that. You won't sort of blow everything all in one go. But put your cavalry away from the main line, so that once the enemy is engaged, your ice zombies are stuck against your line, you can then swoop in from the side where they're not expecting you and overrun them. I mean, it's not going to really necessarily win your fight against an army of ice zombies, but at least it means that you are fighting them in a way that they don't expect. At least you will have done something.
So since he's going into the fantasy approach, I'm going to go into the fantasy approach as well. I will justify what he said now, because he said that the ice zombies are not expecting it, but if they are undead, someone would think, well, they're undead anyway. So, but then again, their leader is intelligent. So regardless of the fantasy setting, because in some fantasy settings, the undead maintain a certain level of intelligence, but usually zombies don't have any. Zombies just have the bare minimum intelligence to want to eat. So you can outsmart zombies. In fact, the ditches are probably great, because the zombie's gonna fall into the ditches and then you can shoot them. And I don't know what gets. Maybe you can burn them alive. But then again, remember, the Lich is intelligent, and if he can give orders through magic, control the undead, whether it be skeletons or zombies, then that's who you need to outsmart, and maybe he didn't expect that. That's very good.
Something with your cavalry that made sense. But otherwise, I mean, obviously it's all a bit silly. So, what should we say, 5 out of 10?
He's very generous with he says it's a bit silly, the tactics are nonsense, 5 out of 10. If it was me, probably would have given it lower. So I'm glad that they had to deal with him and not me. What's this? House of the Dragon.
Why not either let the archers handle it, or send out a formation of guys, let him try and break a shield wall on his own with only a little sword? Like, he's not going to have a good time.
Look, you see, wearing, sorry about that, but I gotta see it.
Have a good time.
That's what you get for wearing leather jerkin for armor. You muppet. He deserves it.
Obviously, every time he has to fight someone, he stops. That's when he would get shot. And he has to do that several times and then find cover, which just happens to be there. He's immensely lucky. He's basically wearing sort of premium grade plot armor. Also, I'm begging movie makers to please stop it with the orders to the archers.
Yeah.
Never happened. The knock, draw, lose thing, it's not real. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.
Yeah, and the reason why he's saying that is particularly with heavy poundage longbows, like 130 pounds longbow. Sure, archers were very strong, but that's beyond the point. A medieval archer was supposed to be, I gotta put myself full screen for this one because I gotta kind of show. So a real medieval archer was expected to be able to draw their heavy war bows all the way back to the ear, because that's in order to maximize the penetrative power and range of the bow. So could you imagine 130 pounds, you have to draw it all the way to your ear, and then you're waiting for the guy who's like, hold, and you're there like this, hold, and you're there like this, and then finally he says fire, and you don't know what to do because there is no fire involved. Well, no, they say loose, and then good luck doing that for an entire battle. Like, your archers are gonna be spent after 3 arrows. He's absolutely right.
The crab feeders men, the men in yellow, they actually have these swords and bucklers, which is a very
Yeah.
particular style of combat where they have these curved swords and these very small shields. Usually they would have been made of metal, and you can actually use them
Or
both
wood.
to guard yourself and
Metal or wood.
to attack. So they have a very particular style of armor that you don't see in movies or TV series a lot. So
Yeah.
in terms of the fighting, it's just chaos. Everybody's just running around and
Yeah, there is no regimentation often in movies, and particularly in this one, which is a shame, because I think formations and proper formation combat would look awesome, but that would take a lot of training, wouldn't it? For the actors, I mean.
engaging the enemy one at a time, hacking at anything they can see. It's very exciting to watch, but this is not a battle. This is just a big mess. 2
Yeah.
out of 10.
Hi, I'm
Thank you.
Shane Adams, the owner of the Knights of Valor, full contact jousting company. I've been jousting for well over 25 years. So I have 20 international jousting championships under my belt.
Wow.
They hit, but it was just a glancing blow. There is no penalty for missing your opponent,
I gotta say this guy looks awesome. Maximum respect.
but you're going to be behind in points. If you hit the target, whether it be a smooth plate or whether it be a targ shield, you get a certain amount of points. And ultimately, if you unhorse your opponent in the full contact style, that's the maximum amount of points. There's probably well over 19, 20, 25 different styles of jousting.
Okay, that's interesting he said that. So in the full contact jousting style, if you unhorse your opponent, is maximum points. Usually I think in the medieval perspective, and jousting experts, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it is that you don't really try to unhorse necessarily the opponent. What you're trying to do is break your lance. That's how you score your points. And depending on how good of a hit you get, and I think where you hit, then those points, you have a higher chance of connecting, gripping properly, and breaking the lance. You want to break the lance, you don't necessarily want to unhorse the opponent. If it does happen, great, but it's not. I don't think it is the way to get maximum point in the way we usually imagine medieval jousting.
Yeah, see that ridge around that shield? Bad news.
Yeah.
You don't want a lip around the shield. You don't want any spot where that lance is going to connect and lock into the lip. You want to be able to deflect the lance away from your body. So, completely wrong shield.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool though.
The jousting that was there, it was decent for a theatrical style joust.
Right.
If there were true knights, they wouldn't be holding their shields like that. They're leaving.
True, yeah, true. He's holding the shield wrong. He's not protecting anything. But then again, good luck operating anything in this bulky mess of an armor. That does look intimidating, so I'll give him that. Also, they destroyed the tilt, which was kind of funny. Another thing is they did start, I don't know if he's going to point this out, but they did start with the lance already down. Usually when I see medieval jousting, the lance starts up and then it goes down, which I think is really cool to see. But I don't know if that would change depending on the style. I wonder how he does it.
Leaving themselves completely exposed from the top of the shield to throat, head. That scene where the horse actually does fall into the joust list, usually it would be the opposite way.
The list, yeah, that's the word.
So the person would be getting hit coming off to the right side. Based on the fact that we do real full contact jousting, we always drop the reins. So that way there, if you get off balance, you're not going to be pulling your horse to the extent that you're going to be pulling your horse down onto the ground with you. I'm 265 pounds. Add my armor, I'm 415 pounds.
Man, how heavy is your armor?
Riding a 2,000-pound horse, charging at 20, 25 miles an hour against the same opposing force. It's a car wreck. So when we hit, there is a lot of force being generated.
Yeah.
Both guys were not wearing proper equipment as far as gorgets to protect their necks, because the lance can hit and come up
Correct.
straight into your throat. You could tell right away, looking at the tips of the lances. The Hound's lance didn't have a cornel on it, didn't have like a tip on the end. It was a sheer point. Knights back in the olden days, the nobility were the ones jousting. They didn't want to go out there and kill each other. And the ends of the lances had cornels put on them, again, to disperse the impact force on the knight's armor. It's like a cast fist put on. Well, if you don't do that, you have a scene possibly like this. And historically, that could have definitely happened. So I'm a total Game of Thrones geek, and I love the show. However, have to give it a 4.
Yeah, I understand. That scene, they kind of censored it a little bit, but I remember reviewing that scene back in the day. And the guy, he has zero protection, nothing, like completely exposed throat. And then he gets the lance in the throat and dies, and everyone is shocked. How did that happen? What did you expect? He gave him no protection whatsoever. And he was wearing like half a salad with nothing, no bever, no gorget, nothing. It was completely, I mean, you could see his skin. It was like, come on, you've got to find something else. It's such a well-written show, at least, except for the end, I guess. Is Toby Capwell next? Yes, okay, let's watch Toby Capwell and then we'll stop.
Hi, I'm Toby Capwell. I'm curator of Arms and Armor at the Wiles Collection in central London. Since I was a kid, I've been riding horses and fighting in armor. I've taken part in competitions, armored combat all over the world. If I could change one thing, I would change this. He's wearing his gorget on the outside of his breastplate.
See?
The gorget is that neck plate. He should actually have plates covering his throat. The gorget has neck plates in here, and it comes down and has this larger chest plate. That chest plate should be underneath.
Careful with the mic.
The breastplate. And the breastplate has a turned
you see,
edge.
I'm happy that Toby Capwell, the actual super expert, is saying something similar to exactly the same as what I was saying. That kind of makes me feel good. If you go to a museum, you'll see this. It's not like, oh my gosh, how did you know that? Because you go to a museum and you see this.
To stop things sliding up into your face. But if anything does get past, it hits the gorget.
Yeah.
But in Game of Thrones, they habitually put them on the outside. And it's a howler that I can't.
1 out of 10. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Neil Kamimura.
Oh, that's it?
I'm a Blade.
Oh, that was it. Well, you know, I think this guy looks really cool as well, but it's getting a little late, so I'm going to stop it here. But anyways, what did you guys think? Did you guys like the this Game of Thrones episode of Insider? I thought it was fun. I mean, the experts were great. So, fantastic, I guess. Goodbye.